Morning light streamed through the glass panels of Quantum Dynamics Corp's high-rise on North 1st Street, San Jose. The 15-story building, sleek and glass-clad, with a LEED Platinum certification, stood as a point of pride for Silicon Valley. The grand lobby spanned 3 floors, featuring an indoor waterfall cascading from the ceiling. The sound of water mingled with the hurried footsteps of hundreds of employees starting their day. Thomas Mitchell, or Tom, as everyone called him, stepped out from the maintenance room on the 3rd floor. He was 41, dressed in the navy blue maintenance uniform, the breast pocket stitched with Tom, Maintenance Tech. In his hand was an old metal toolbox, silver, dented in several places, but if one looked closely, beneath the scratches, a faint hand-engraved line was still visible. TM. Cloud Bridge, 2015. Tom was heading toward the elevator when the sound of high heels clicked against the marble floor. He looked up. Catherine Whitmore, or Kate, as the industry knew her, was walking toward him. 30 years old, the youngest CEO ever to lead a tech company in Silicon Valley. Tom Ford outfit, Hermes handbag, sleek golden hair. She had been the cover of Fortune's 40 Under 40 just last year, and now she was staring straight at the toolbox in Tom's hand. She stopped, right there, in the middle of the crowded lobby. Everything seemed to slow down. "Wait." Kate's voice was cold as ice. Heads turned. "You." Tom turned around. Their eyes met. "Yes, ma'am?" Kate stepped closer, narrowing her eyes at the faded logo. Her finger pointed directly at it. "Why does my company's logo appear on your toolbox?" Her tone was sharp, accusatory, not a question, but a demand. The bustling lobby fell silent. People stopped walking. Phones came out. A young director passing by snickered. Probably grabbed it from the old storage room. Another chimed in, laughing. Or maybe he found it in the trash? Tom looked down at the box, then back at Kate. His face was unnervingly calm. "You said your company's logo?" "That's right, Cloud Bridge Systems. That logo hasn't been used since 2020, yet you have it. I want to know why." Tom paused. 1 second, 2, 3. Then he spoke, softly, but each word carried weight. "Because I created it. Before you bought it." The entire 3rd floor lobby froze. Kate frowned. "What did you say?" Tom didn't repeat himself. He simply turned and walked toward the elevator. Behind him, Kate's voice cut through the air like glass. "Security! Hold him! I want this man's background checked, right now." If your heart skipped a beat when you heard the words, "I created it," before you bought it, hit subscribe, because everything you think you know is about to be turned upside down. What do you think lies behind that old logo? A secret? Or a debt the entire corporation is trying to bury? To understand why a 41-year-old man said those words, we have to go back 10 years. Thomas Mitchell wasn't always a maintenance worker. In 2015, he was a PhD in computer engineering from Stanford. 26 years old, bright-eyed, full of ambition and dreams. He worked in a garage in Mountain View, California, with his wife Jennifer, or Jen, who was only 25. Jen was the chief product officer. Tom was the CTO. They named their company Cloud Bridge Systems. Their idea was simple but revolutionary. A cloud bridging system that allowed small businesses to access enterprise-level technology without spending millions on infrastructure. Tom built the first prototype with his own hands, soldering circuits, writing code, testing, debugging. Then, starting over again. One evening, Jen sat beside him in the garage. Her belly was already showing, 5 months pregnant. She placed her hand on Tom's shoulder. "You know," she said softly, "one day You're going to change the world." Tom looked up and smiled tiredly. "You really think so?" Jen nodded, serious. "Our little girl will be proud of her dad." Tom kissed her forehead. "And of her mom, too. They worked like mad, 16 hours a day, slept on the garage floor, ate instant noodles, but they were happy." In September 2016, Emma was born at El Camino Hospital in Mountain View, a tiny baby girl with her mother's eyes and her father's smile. "Hi there," Tom whispered, holding her in his arms. "Daddy promises to build a better world for you." 2 months after Emma's birth, Cloudbridge made its first breakthrough. Their system was being tested by 3 major Silicon Valley companies, and the results exceeded all expectations. The rumors spread fast. Investors began knocking on their door, and one of them was Robert Whitmore. Robert Whitmore, 58, a retired CEO and famous venture capitalist, sat in a small cafe in Palo Alto, studying Tom over gold-rimmed glasses. "I like your idea, Tom. I'll invest $5 million, but I want 40% equity." Tom hesitated. Jen sat beside him, holding his hand. "We'll need some time to think about it, Mr. Whitmore." Robert smiled, a smile that carried no warmth. "Time isn't something you have, Tom. There are 3 other companies developing similar tech. If you want to win, you need the money. Now." Tom and Jen exchanged a look, then nodded. They signed the deal. It was the biggest mistake of their lives. With the investment, Cloudbridge grew rapidly. By 2017, they had 50 employees. By 2018, 200. Their office moved from the garage to a small building in Mountain View. Tom worked non-stop. He'd get home at 11 p.m., kiss his sleeping daughter, then continue working on his laptop. Jen did the same, but she always made sure Friday nights were for family. That was their sacred rule. One Friday evening in November 2018, Jen was leaving work. Emma, 2 years old, had just learned to talk. Tom had promised to be home early for dinner. Jen drove along El Camino Real. It was raining. At the intersection with San Antonio Road, green light. A speeding truck ran the red. The crash. Then, silence. Tom was in a meeting with his engineering team when his phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello? Mr. Thomas Mitchell? This is the Mountain View Police Department. You need to come to El Camino Hospital immediately. Your wife has been in an accident." The phone dropped to the floor. The sound of the world around him disappeared. He saw people's mouths moving, but heard nothing. Colors drained away. Time froze. He ran out. No coat. No words. Just ran. Hospital, long white hallway, the smell of antiseptic. A doctor walked out, face grave. "Mr. Mitchell, I'm so sorry." "No, no, no." Tom fell to his knees. No tears, no sound, just stillness, like a stone statue. Jennifer Sullivan Mitchell, 27 years old, died instantly, left behind. A 2-year-old girl sleeping at her grandmother's house, unaware that her mother would never come home. 2 weeks after the funeral, Tom sat in his Cloudbridge office. He couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. Just stared out the window, watching cars flow along El Camino Real. A knock. Robert Whitmore entered, followed by 2 lawyers. "Tom, we need to talk." Tom didn't turn around, still staring out the window. Robert sat down. "I'm sorry about Jen. She was an incredible woman." Tom said nothing. "But the company can't stop. We have obligations. To investors, to our employees. Tom, you need to focus again." Tom turned to face him. His eyes were red, but dry. "You want me to focus? While she—" Robert lowered his head, speaking softly. "I understand. But think about Emma. She needs you. You need financial stability. This company is her future." Tom looked down at the desk. All he could see was Emma sleeping. Her voice asking, "Where's Mommy, Daddy?" Tom swallowed hard. "I need time." Robert nodded. "I understand. Take a week off. Then we'll talk again." But 1 week wasn't enough. 2 weeks weren't enough. A month wasn't enough. Tom returned to work, but he wasn't the same. In important meetings, he stayed silent. For major decisions, he just nodded. One night, he came home at 10. Emma was sleeping at her grandmother's. She hadn't seen her father in a week. Tom looked at the photos on the wall. Their wedding day. Jen pregnant. Emma as a newborn. He fell to his knees, holding his head, crying, for the first time since the funeral. "Jen, you were right. I did change the world, but I lost you." March 2019. Robert Whitmore called Tom into his private office again. "Tom, we need to talk about the company's future." Tom nodded wearily. Robert opened a folder. "You're no longer focused on the job. The board is concerned. We think maybe it's time you take a break." Tom stared at him. "You're firing me?" "Not firing," Robert replied. "We'd like to buy out your shares, so you can focus on your family, on Emma." Tom gave a weary, bitter smile. "How much?" $150,000. "Do you even know what this company is worth?" Tom's voice trembled. "I do," Robert said, meeting his eyes. "But this isn't about money. It's about being a father. Emma needs you, all of you, not a father who works 16 hours a day." The words cut deep. Robert slid the papers across the table. "Sign this. Take the money. Go home. Take care of your daughter. It's what Jen would have wanted." Tom sat there, hands trembling. He thought of Emma at her grandmother's house, asking each night, "When's Daddy coming home?" He thought of Jen. She needs her father. Tom picked up the pen. Didn't read the documents, just signed. One signature, and everything he had ever built disappeared. 2 years passed. In 2020, Cloudbridge Systems was acquired by Quantum Dynamics Corp. Robert Whitmore became an advisor. The company rebranded completely. Tom and Emma moved out of their house in Mountain View. Too many memories. Too much pain. They found a small apartment in Sunnyvale. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom. Rent $2,400 a month. Fair Oaks neighborhood. An ordinary residential area. The $150,000 from selling his shares was dwindling. The cost of living in Silicon Valley was too high. Tom needed a job. But what kind? A man who had been a CTO, a Stanford PhD, 38 years old, couldn't go back to tech. Not because he wasn't capable, but because he couldn't. Every time he saw a line of code, he thought of Jen. Every time he heard the word prototype, he thought of the old garage. Every time someone mentioned Cloudbridge, now Quantum Dynamics, it felt like a knife to the heart. Tom looked for work in places where no one knew who he was. He applied to Facility Pro Services, a company providing maintenance services. They needed people to fix printers, air conditioners, lights. The manager, Dave, frowned at Tom's resume. "You've got a Stanford PhD, and you're applying for this job?" Tom nodded calmly. "I need a flexible job. I have a young daughter." Dave studied him for a moment. "Okay, $22 an hour. Hours are 7 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. That work for you?" "It does, thank you." And so, Thomas Mitchell, Stanford PhD, CTO, co-founder of Cloudbridge Systems, became a repairman. On his first day, Tom wore a Navy uniform. A name tag on his chest read, Tom. 4-year-old Emma looked at her dad from the sofa, hugging her teddy bear. "Where are you going, Daddy?" "Daddy's going to work, sweetie." "What time will you be home?" Tom knelt to meet her eyes. 3:30 p.m. I promise. Emma smiled. Do you really promise?" "I really promise." Tom kissed her forehead and left. In the car, he glanced in the rearview mirror at his face. Slightly scruffy stubble, gray at the temples, tired eyes. But inside, there was a quiet warmth. He would be home on time. He would be there for Emma. That was what mattered. Maintenance work wasn't easy. Not easy at all. Fixing jammed printers, replacing fluorescent bulbs, repairing leaking AC units, unclogging drains, tasks that, 10 years earlier, Tom never imagined he would do. But there was one thing Tom liked. This job didn't come home with him. No midnight emails, no weekend meetings. At 3:30 p.m., Tom grabbed his toolbox, punched out, and went home. Emma was waiting. She attended preschool in the mornings. Her grandmother watched her in the afternoons. "Daddy!" Emma ran out and hugged his legs tight. Tom lifted her and spun around. "What did you learn today?" "I learned to draw. I drew you and Mommy." Tom looked at the drawing. 2 stick figures standing side by side, one tall, one shorter. Next to them was a faint shape, a third figure with angel wings. He swallowed. "It's beautiful, sweetie." That night, after Emma fell asleep, Tom sat on the sofa, staring at the drawing. He touched the winged figure gently. "Jen, do you see this? She misses you. Every day." 2 more years passed. Emma turned 6. First grade. She was smart, like her mother. She learned to read quickly. She loved to ask, why? One day, her teacher called Tom. "Mr. Mitchell, we'd like to talk about Emma. She's exceptional. We think she should be in the gifted program." Tom smiled. "Thank you. But does that program cost extra?" "Yes, $200 a month." Tom fell silent. $200. "I know it's a significant amount, Mr. Mitchell, but with Emma's ability, we don't want to miss this." Tom looked out the window. It was drizzling. "Let me think about it." That evening, Tom sat down to do a budget. Rent, $2,400. Utilities, $150. Food, $600. Gas, $200. Health insurance, $400. Emma's tuition, $300. Total, $4,050 a month. Tom's income, 22-hour, x 8 hours, x 22 days. Average hours, 4 hours, $3,872. Negative. They were in the red every month. Tom checked the bank balance, $8,147, what remained from the old $150K. If he added $200 for the gifted program, they'd run out in 6 months. He set down his pen. "No, I can't." But Emma deserved it. Emma was as brilliant as her mother. She needed the best chance. Tom picked up the phone, called Facility Pro. "Dave, can I get overtime? Evenings or weekends?" Dave sighed. "Tom, don't you want to be home with your daughter?" "I do, but I need the money." "Okay, there's a big project this Saturday. Can you take it?" "Yes, thank you." Tom hung up. He looked at Emma's photo on the desk, a wide grin, one front tooth missing. "Sweetie, I'm sorry. I won't be able to go to the park with you this Saturday." From then on, Tom worked extra hours. Saturdays, Sundays, sometimes late at night. Emma understood, but she was sad. One evening, Tom came home at 9 p.m. Emma was asleep on the sofa, hugging her teddy, a math workbook unfinished beside her. Grandma, Jen's mother, sat nearby. She was old now, her hair pure white. "She waited for you." She nodded off. Tom knelt and gently lifted Emma. She stirred, half awake. "Daddy, Daddy's here. Go back to sleep." Emma wrapped her arms around his neck and cried, "I miss you, Daddy." Tom held her tight, tears slipping down. "I miss you too. I'm sorry." That night, after tucking Emma into bed, Tom sat on the hallway floor, head in his hands. "Jen, I don't know if I'm doing this right. I want to give her everything, but I'm losing her." No answer. Only the soft hum of the air conditioner. In 2023, Emma was 7. Tom decided to cut back on overtime. Better to be poorer but have a dad than richer and lose him. They ate simpler meals, pasta instead of steak, wore old clothes instead of new, no movies, picnics in the park instead. But they were happy, in a different way. Every evening, Tom read to Emma. Every weekend, they baked together. Every month, they went to the Sunnyvale Library. Emma borrowed 10 books and finished them in 2 weeks. Emma didn't know her father had once been a Stanford PhD, didn't know he'd once built a tech company. To Emma, her dad was the man who took care of her, cooked, read stories, and was always there. And that was enough. March 2025. Tom was 40. Facility Pro lost contracts with several companies. They had to lay people off. Tom was laid off. That evening, Tom came home. Emma was doing homework. "You're home early, Daddy?" Tom forced a smile. "Yeah, I've got a bit of free time." "Yay! Can you help me with math?" Tom sat beside her. Fractions, 3rd grade. Easy for him. But he explained slowly, patiently, so she would understand. Emma looked up and grinned. "You're really good at math, Daddy." "I used to study a lot." "Really? Where did you study?" Tom hesitated. "At a big school." "Can you teach me more?" Tom put an arm around her. "Of course. Every night." That night, after Emma fell asleep, Tom sat on the balcony looking up at the stars. He thought about the future. The money left in the account couldn't last 3 months. He needed a job. Fast. A week later, Tom saw a job posting on LinkedIn. Quantum Dynamics Corp. Maintenance technician needed. North 1st Street, San Jose. Tom stared at the company name, Quantum Dynamics, formerly Cloud Bridge Systems. The company he created. The company that pushed him out. Should he apply? Part of him said, "No, don't." But another part said, "They pay 25-hour, higher than Facility Pro. Your daughter needs the money." Tom clicked Apply. A week later, he received an email from Patricia in HR. "Dear Mr. Mitchell, we would like to interview you for the maintenance technician position." Tom sat in a small office across from Gary, the facilities manager. "Do you have experience with electrical, plumbing, and machinery repairs?" "Yes, 3 years at Facility Pro." Gary looked at the resume. "Where did you study?" "Stanford." Gary looked up. "Stanford? In what field?" "Computer science." Gary chuckled. "PhD, huh? Then why this job?" Tom answered calmly. "I have a daughter. I need a stable job with fixed hours." Gary nodded. "Okay, I like your honesty. You're hired. Start next week." Tom shook his hand. "Thank you." As he walked out of the Quantum Dynamics building, Tom looked up. 15 floors of glass. A large logo. Quantum Dynamics Corp. Below it, faintly, a small line read, "Formerly Cloud Bridge Systems, Eastern 2015. Tom smiled. A sad smile. "I'm home, Jen. Back where we once built everything. But no one recognizes me." He turned away, stepped down the stairs, and headed toward his old car, a 2008 Honda Accord bought off Craigslist for $4,000. On his first day at Quantum Dynamics, Tom received his uniform, navy blue, with a name tag on the chest, Tom, Maintenance Tech. He was led to the basement, where the maintenance room was located, a small, dimly lit space heavy with the smell of grease and old metal. Gary, the manager, gestured around. "This is your workspace. Most of the time, you'll be moving around the building. See something broken? Fix it. Got it?" Tom nodded. "Got it." Gary pointed to an old rusted toolbox in the corner. "You can use that if you want. Belonged to someone before you." Tom glanced over. The metal box was corroded, its paint peeling off in flakes. He shook his head. "No need. I've got my own." Tom opened his backpack and pulled out his silver metal toolbox, dented, scratched, worn from years of use. On the lid, beneath a thin layer of dust, faintly engraved, TM, Cloudbridge, 2015. Gary gave it a brief look, frowned slightly, but said nothing. All right then, get started. For the first 3 months, Tom worked like a shadow. He arrived early, 7 a.m., before the office staff came in. He moved from floor to floor, checking printers, air conditioners, light fixtures, fixing whatever needed fixing. At 3:30 sharp, he clocked out and left. Never late, never lingering. No one paid him much attention. To the Quantum employees, he was just the printer guy. They walked past him, eyes glued to their phones, never bothering to meet his gaze. And Tom preferred it that way. He didn't want to be noticed, didn't want to be asked. He just wanted to work, earn his paycheck, and go home to Emma. Sometimes, while walking past the lab floors, he'd stop. Through the glass windows, he'd watch young engineers typing furiously, sketching algorithms, arguing over data with fiery eyes and caffeine-fueled passion. Tom stood there quietly, like a man watching a ghost of his former self. Once, a young engineer caught him looking. The boy frowned, walked over, and opened the door. "Do you need something, sir?" Tom stepped back slightly. No. Just checking the AC unit." "The AC's working fine." "Good. Then I'll be going." Tom turned and walked away. Behind him, the young engineer muttered to his teammates, "Weird old guy." The group laughed. Tom didn't hear, or pretended not to. By his 6th month at Quantum, Tom crossed paths with Dr. Michael Harrison. Mike was the current CTO, 48, Scottish, deep voice, salt and pepper beard. That day, Tom was fixing a printer on the 12th floor, the executive wing. Mike walked by and stopped. "Excuse me, will this take long?" Tom didn't look up. "5 minutes, sir." "Good. I need to print a report for the 2 o'clock meeting." Tom tightened the final screw, closed the lid. All set. Mike pressed print. The machine hummed perfectly. No jams, no errors. "Well done. Thank you." Tom nodded, bending to pack his tools. Then Mike noticed it, the faint engraving on the toolbox lid. He froze. "Wait a second." Tom stiffened. Mike leaned closer, reading aloud. "Cloudbridge Systems? Isn't that—" Tom stood quickly, cutting him off. "Just an old box, sir. Bought it off eBay." Mike looked straight into his eyes. 1 second, 2, then slowly nodded. "Right, eBay. Got it." But in that look, there was something else, something that said he knew, but chose silence. "Thanks for fixing it," Mike said quietly. "No problem, sir." Tom bowed his head and walked down the corridor. Behind him, Mike stood still, the printed paper in his hand. He glanced at the fading Cloudbridge letters on the departing toolbox, then at the gleaming Quantum Dynamics logo on the wall, and murmured under his breath, "It can't be." That night, Mike sat in his dimly lit office, golden light spilling across his desk. He opened his laptop and accessed the company's archived database, typed Thomas Mitchell, Cloudbridge Systems. The screen loaded, an old record, dated 2015. Profile photo, a young man, 26, bright-eyed, smiling. Mike zoomed in, comparing it to the tired repairman he'd seen earlier that day. Older, worn down, but unmistakably the same person. "Thomas Mitchell," he whispered. "He's working here, as a maintenance tech." He scrolled down the file. Co-founder, CTO, forced out, 2019. Whereabouts, unknown. Mike leaned back in his chair, eyes on the ceiling. Why didn't he say anything? Why accept this life? Then his eyes caught the family section. Family. Emma Mitchell, born 2016. And he understood. He chose his daughter. Mike sat there for a long time, silent. Then murmured to himself, "I won't say a word. He deserves his peace." But part of him couldn't shake the thought. Would the truth ever come out? And when it did, what would happen then? Tom stood still in the middle of the grand lobby, held by two security guards. One had a firm grip on his arm, the other held his toolbox. Kate Whitmore, arms crossed, eyes sharp as steel, glared at him. "Open the box!" The guard lifted the lid. Inside, wrenches, screwdrivers, pliers, a small soldering iron. Nothing special, nothing of value. But Kate's expression didn't soften. "Check his employee file. I want to know everything." Patricia from HR opened her tablet, scrolling quickly. Thomas Mitchell, 41 years old, employed here for 3 months. Previously worked at Facility Pro Services. Bachelor's degree from Stanford. Wait, no, PhD in computer science. Kate turned sharply, her voice edged with disbelief. A Stanford PhD, working as a maintenance tech? Patricia swallowed. It appears so. "Ma'am." Kate's gaze returned to Tom, colder now. "Can you explain that? Why would a man with a PhD take this kind of job?" Tom said nothing. A young executive in a suit smirked. "Maybe he got expelled. Fake degree?" Another chuckled. "Or mental breakdown." Laughter spread through the lobby. Tom stood still, eyes lowered to the marble floor. No defense, no anger, just silence. Kate frowned. The way he stood there, quiet, calm, it didn't look like guilt. It looked like dignity. She took a step forward. "You said earlier you created it. Before I bought it. What did you mean?" Tom raised his head. His eyes were steady, his voice calm but firm. "Cloudbridge Systems. I co-founded it in 2015. The entire lobby fell silent. Kate frowned, almost laughing from disbelief. "You're lying." "No?" "The co-founder of Cloudbridge disappeared in 2019. No one knew where he went." Tom gave a small, weary smile, the kind that comes from an old scar. "He didn't disappear. He just changed jobs." Then a voice echoed from behind, deep, warm, with a hint of Scottish tone. "He's telling the truth." All heads turned. Dr. Michael Harrison stepped out of the elevator, his white lab coat still dusted with ink stains, glasses perched on his head. He walked straight toward Tom and stopped in front of him. "Tom," he said softly, "I know who you are." Tom didn't reply. He simply lowered his head slightly. There was a shimmer in his eyes. Kate looked between them, stunned. "Mike, what are you talking about?" Mike turned to her, voice firm. "Mrs. Whitmore, this man isn't a thief. He's Thomas Mitchell, CTO and co-founder of Cloudbridge Systems. He's the man who built the very foundation your company, this company, stands on." The air shattered into silence. No one breathed. No one spoke. Kate looked at Mike, then back at Tom. "That's impossible. Why would he be doing this kind of work?" Mike met her eyes, voice heavy. "Why? Because your father pushed him out right after his wife died. Because he had to raise his daughter alone. Because no one, not even you, saw his worth." Kate took a step back. Her face went pale. Mike continued, his tone steady but pained. "I worked with Tom back in 2017. I saw him work 20-hour days. I watched him build this company from nothing. And now he's fixing printers in the very building he created." A young employee spoke up, voice trembling. "If he's really the founder, why didn't he sue us?" Mike turned to him, gaze sharp. "Because that's not who he is. He chose his daughter over money, over fame, over revenge. Kate swallowed hard, turning to Tom. Can you prove it? Tom said nothing. He took out his phone, opened an old folder, and handed it to her. Photos. Him and Jen in the garage in 2015, beside their first prototype. A photo of the signed company registration. A blueprint, the original system design. And in one photo, Robert Whitmore, Kate's father, stood between them, smiling proudly. Kate's hands trembled as she held the phone. This was… when? 2017, Tom replied calmly. When your father invested in Cloudbridge. Kate stared into his eyes. What happened after that? Tom remained silent. Mike answered instead. His wife died in an accident in 2018. He broke down. And your father took advantage of it. Forced him to sell his shares for next to nothing. Kate stood frozen. My father? Did that? Mike nodded gravely. Maybe he thought it was a sound business move. But for Tom, it was the end of everything. Kate's eyes drifted down to the toolbox, the faint Cloudbridge Systems logo, the hand-carved inscription, TM 2015. She knelt down, gently touching the letters. You kept this all this time? Tom nodded. It reminds me that I once built something that mattered, and that I chose something even more important. What's that? Kate whispered, her voice trembling. Tom smiled softly. My daughter. Kate closed her eyes. A single tear fell onto the silver lid, rolling over the faded engraving. No one spoke. Only the sound of water from the lobby's indoor waterfall. Like time itself washing away the buried secrets of the past. Kate Whitmore opened her eyes and gently wiped her tears. She turned toward the cluster of employees in the lobby, phones raised, filming, whispering, snapping photos. Everyone, back to work. Now. Her tone was cold, firm, leaving no room for argument. The employees hesitated, then scattered, though every head turned back to steal one last look. In less than 10 minutes, this scene would spread through the company like wildfire. Kate looked back at Tom. Mr. Mitchell, come with me. Tom glanced at Mike Harrison. Mike gave a small nod, one filled with quiet encouragement. Tom followed Kate into the private elevator. The doors closed. Silence pressed thickly between them as the car ascended to the 15th floor, the executive suite. Kate's office was vast and immaculate. Glass walls revealed the sweeping skyline of San Jose. Midday light poured across a walnut desk and a gleaming Herman Miller chair. Everything screamed of wealth, order, and perfection. Tom barely noticed. His eyes drifted to the window, toward Mountain View, where he had once lived with Jen. Kate sat down, gesturing to the chair opposite. Please, sit. Tom sat, his back straight, hands resting calmly on his knees. The room was so quiet he could hear the faint ticking of the clock. Kate studied him for a long moment. My father never told me about any of this. Tom nodded slightly. He probably didn't want you to know. He passed away in 2022, Kate said softly. Before he died, he handed me this company. He said it was his legacy. But now I realize it wasn't his. It was yours. Tom shook his head. No, not anymore. I signed the papers. I agreed. But you were forced. Maybe. But I still signed. Kate rose, walking to the window, her voice almost breaking. Why? Why did you accept it? You could have fought. You could have sued. Tom looked up at her. Do you have children, Mrs. Whitmore? She turned, surprised. No. Then you wouldn't understand. She froze for a moment, then quietly came back and sat beside him. In that moment, she was no longer a CEO, just a woman trying to understand a father. Tom exhaled, his voice low and heavy. When Jen died, I lost everything. The company meant nothing. Success meant nothing. All I had left was Emma, my daughter, 2 years old. She needed her dad. He paused, eyes distant. One night, she wouldn't stop crying. She asked me, "Where's Mommy, Daddy?" I didn't know what to say. I just held her and cried with her. And that's when I realized, if I kept living the way I had, working 16 hours a day, I'd lose her too. Not to death, but to time. I'd miss her childhood, her bedtime stories, the chance to actually be her father. Kate said nothing. Only the faint hum of wind against the glass filled the silence. Tom continued, "When your father offered to buy my shares, I wasn't thinking about money. I thought this was my way out, my chance to go home, to be with my daughter." So I agreed. I didn't even read the contract. I just signed. Kate shook her head, whispering, $150,000. The company was worth at least $20 million then. Tom smiled faintly, with the kind of peace that comes after pain. I know, but no amount of money can buy time. No number can buy laughter. Or the first time your child says, "Daddy." Kate's eyes shimmered. "You're an extraordinary man." Tom shook his head and smiled softly. "No, I'm just a father." They sat in silence for a while. Then Kate spoke quietly. "I want to make this right. I want to compensate you." Tom shook his head. "That won't be necessary. You deserve—" "I don't need money," Tom interrupted, his voice firm. "I just need my job. A steady one. One that lets me leave at 3:30 to pick up my daughter. That's all." Kate looked at him, bewildered. "But you could do so much more. You could come back as an engineer, a CTO, anything." Tom chuckled softly. 10 years ago, I would have jumped at that offer. But now, I've learned something." "What's that?" "Fame fades, credit disappears. But what I built still stands. My system still runs. It helps people, and that's enough." Kate shook her head slowly. "You're not angry? You don't want justice?" Tom looked out the window. "See those buildings out there? Someone designed them. Someone poured the concrete, wired the lights. But do you know their names?" Kate shook her head gently. "Exactly," Tom said quietly. "But the buildings still stand. Their work endures. And that's what matters." Kate sat still, taking in every word. She had never heard anyone talk about success that way. Tom stood up. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to get back to work. There's an air conditioner on the 7th floor waiting." Kate rose too. "Wait, you really don't want anything?" Tom paused at the door, turned slightly. "If you truly want to do something—" "Yes?" "Treat your employees well. All of them, not just the engineers, the janitors, the guards, the maintenance workers. They build this company too, and they deserve respect." Kate nodded slowly, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I promise." Tom smiled gently, opened the door, and stepped out. The door closed quietly behind him. Kate stood alone in her glass office. She looked out toward the old Cloud Bridge building, now carrying the quantum dynamics name. And for the first time, she understood. Success isn't measured by fame or power. It's measured by what we leave behind. That night, Kate Whitmore couldn't sleep. She lay in her $4 million apartment at Santana Row, staring at the ceiling awash in the flickering city glow. Images kept replaying in her mind. Tom standing in the middle of the lobby, surrounded by camera flashes and mocking laughter, yet calm, unbroken. The old metal toolbox, the faded Cloud Bridge logo etched into its scarred surface, and Mike's voice echoing in her head. He chose his daughter over money, over fame. Kate sat up. 5 a.m. She opened her laptop and typed, Thomas Mitchell, Stanford, Ph.D. The results filled the screen. His doctoral thesis, IEE papers, photos from his student days, awards for innovation. There was no doubt. He had been a genius. Then she searched Jennifer Mitchell Cloudbridge. An old TechCrunch article from 2017 appeared. Cloudbridge's CPO, Jennifer Mitchell, the woman behind the innovation. Kate read every word. Jen was described as brilliant, imaginative, full of light. A photo showed her smiling, eyes radiant, one hand resting gently on her pregnant belly. Publication date, August 2016. She scrolled further. Another article, dated November 2018. Tech industry mourns the loss of rising star Jennifer Mitchell. A car crash. Killed instantly, leaving behind a husband and a 2-year-old daughter. Kate closed the laptop and buried her face in her hands. For the first time, she cried for someone she had never met. Dad, how could you? The next morning, Kate called an emergency board meeting. 15th floor conference room. 7 senior directors already seated, exchanging uneasy looks. Kate had never summoned them this abruptly before. She entered, holding a thick folder. Ladies and gentlemen, she began evenly. Yesterday there was an incident. A maintenance worker was accused of stealing company property. Heads nodded. Everyone had heard the rumors. Kate continued, her voice calm but glacial. But the truth is, that man was not a thief. That man was Thomas Mitchell, the co-founder of Cloudbridge Systems. The room erupted. What? Why was he here? As a janitor? He could sue us into bankruptcy. Kate raised her hand, silencing them. He's not suing. He's not asking for money. He just wants to work quietly and be home by 3:30 to pick up his daughter. An older director, James, cleared his throat nervously. But that's a massive legal risk, Kate. If he changes his mind. He won't, Kate cut in, eyes sharp. I spoke to him, and he's the most honest man I've ever met. A woman across the table, Susan, asked softly, So, what are you planning to do? Kate opened the folder, revealing several documents. I want to issue a public apology. I want to hold an all-hands meeting so everyone knows who Thomas Mitchell really is. And I want to establish the Jennifer Mitchell Scholarship Fund for the children of every employee, regardless of their position. The room fell into absolute silence. James finally spoke, hesitant. Kate, that could hurt the company's reputation. People will say we deceived them. Kate met his gaze. We did deceive them. My father deceived them. And now it's time to make it right. Susan whispered, But Thomas doesn't want attention. He asked for peace. Kate nodded. I know, but he deserves respect, whether he asks for it or not. That afternoon, Tom was repairing a photocopier on the 4th floor when his phone rang, an internal number. Hello? Mr. Mitchell, this is the CEO's office. Mrs. Whitmore would like to see you. He checked his watch. 2:30 p.m., an hour before he usually clocked out. Can I come up at 3:30? He asked. The secretary hesitated. She said, It's urgent, sir. Tom sighed. All right, I'll be right up. Kate's office glowed with warm afternoon light. But this time, she wasn't alone. Beside her stood Dr. Mike Harrison and a woman with dark hair and glasses. This is Rebecca Chen, the company's legal counsel, Kate introduced. Tom paused by the doorway, wary. What's going on? Kate shook her head gently. Nothing bad. I just want to make you an offer. Tom frowned. I told you. I don't want your money. It's not about money, Kate said, stepping forward. I want to offer you the position of Chief Innovation Officer. Tom almost laughed. then immediately shook his head. No. Why not? I need to be home by 3:30. Kate smiled softly. This role doesn't have fixed hours. You can set your own schedule. Leave whenever you need. Tom hesitated. I don't want to go back to that world again. Mike stepped closer, voice steady. Tom, you wouldn't be doing it alone. I'll be with you. No overtime, no pressure. Just the freedom to build again, on your own terms. Tom stayed silent. Rebecca opened the folder in her hands, speaking calmly. Mr. Mitchell, this is the contract. Base salary, $200,000 a year. Equity, 5%. And full autonomy over your working hours. She looked to Kate. Kate continued, her voice low but certain. And we will establish the Jennifer Mitchell Scholarship Fund for the children of all quantum dynamics employees, from engineers to janitors. Tom stood motionless. Hearing Jen's name made his chest tighten. Why? Kate stepped closer, her eyes glistening. Because she deserves to be remembered. Because this company was built not only by you, but by her too. And because I want your daughter, Emma, to grow up knowing her mother left behind a legacy. Tom turned away, wiping his eyes. Emma never knew what I used to do. Mike spoke softly, his Scottish accent warm. Maybe. It's time she did. The room fell silent. The golden sunlight streamed through the glass, glinting off the old silver toolbox resting on the desk. Finally, Tom's hoarse voice broke the stillness. Can I think about it tonight? Kate nodded, her expression gentle. Of course. That afternoon, Tom came home at 3:45 p.m., 15 minutes late. Emma sat on the couch, her small legs swinging, eyes fixed on the clock on the wall. Daddy, you're late. Tom knelt down, voice gentle. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I had something urgent at work. Emma shrugged, then threw her arms around his neck. It's okay. I know you're busy. Tom held her tight. The faint scent of her shampoo filled his chest with warmth. He took a slow breath, then said softly, Sweetheart, I need to talk to you about something. Emma looked up. About what, Daddy? About your mom. And about me. They sat together on the couch. Tom opened his laptop and pulled up an old folder, photos untouched for years. Do you know what your mom did before she left us? Emma shook her head. Grandma just said she was a good person. Tom clicked the first photo. Jen stood in the garage, holding a circuit board, her smile bright and full of life. Your mom was an engineer, smart, creative. She built things that helped people. Emma leaned closer, eyes wide. She's so pretty. Tom smiled, nodding. Yes, and she was strong too. I remember one time she worked 3 days straight, no sleep, just to finish a project. I told her to rest, but she said, Not yet. This project will help thousands. Emma giggled softly, her eyes glimmering in the late afternoon light. Tom switched to another photo. He and Jen standing proudly in front of the Cloud Bridge Systems sign. Your mom and I built this company together. I handled the systems, she handled the product. We worked like a team. Emma tilted her head. What happened then, Daddy? Tom was quiet for a long moment. Then he whispered, Then your mom was gone, and I couldn't go on. I sold the company, so I could stay home and take care of you. Emma's eyes widened. You sold it? Because of me? Tom nodded. Yes. Why? He took her small hand in his. Because you were more important than anything else. Emma's eyes filled with tears as she wrapped her arms around him. I'm sorry. If it weren't for me, maybe you... Tom hugged her tighter, his voice breaking. No, don't ever think that. You're the best thing that's ever happened to me. You and your mom. The two best things in my life." They stayed like that for a long time, silent except for the ticking of the clock and the hum of distant traffic outside. After a while, Emma asked softly, "Where do you work now, Daddy?" Tom hesitated. "At the company your mom and I built." Emma's eyes widened again. "Really?" He nodded. "But it's not mine anymore, and I only fix things now. Printers, lights, air conditioners." Emma thought for a moment, then said quietly, "I don't care what you do, Daddy. I just want you to come home on time and be with me." Tom's throat tightened. "So do I, sweetheart. So do I." After a pause, he asked gently, "If Daddy had a chance to do another job, but could still come home on time, would that be okay with you?" Emma tilted her head. "What kind of job?" "I was offered a position as an engineer again, but I don't know if I should take it." Emma frowned, thinking hard, then asked, "Do you like doing that?" Tom smiled faintly. "I used to love it." "Then do it, Daddy, as long as you still come home to me." Tom laughed softly through his tears. "You sure about that?" Emma nodded firmly. "I want you to be happy, and I think Mommy would want that too." Tom hugged her close once more. "Thank you, Emma." Night fell. When Emma was fast asleep, Tom sat on the balcony, staring at the stars scattered across the San Jose sky. The air was cool and still. He whispered, "Jen, what should I do?" And then, like a voice from memory, her words returned to him. "Don't ever stop building. But don't forget to live." Tom smiled softly. He picked up his phone and began typing an email to Kate Whitmore. "Mrs. Whitmore, I accept. But on one condition. The new lab must be called the Mitchell Innovation Lab, not just to remember me, but to remember Jennifer too. And I want my daughter Emma to be free to visit anytime she wants. I want her to see her mother's legacy. Tom." He pressed send. Then he looked up again, just as a shooting star streaked across the night sky. And in that moment, he knew. Jen was still watching. 3 days later, Kate Whitmore called for an all-company meeting. But this was no ordinary meeting. It was a special event. The grand lobby of Quantum Dynamics gleamed with light. Over 800 employees from every department gathered. Rows of chairs were lined up. A massive LED screen dominated the stage. The air buzzed with curiosity. "What's going on?" "I heard it's about that maintenance guy." At exactly 10 a.m., Kate walked onto the stage. She wore a black suit, her expression composed, her eyes resolute. "Good morning," she began. "Today, I'm not here to talk about profits or quarterly goals. Today, I want to tell you a story." The screen behind her flickered to life. A photo appeared, 2 people smiling inside a small garage cluttered with wires and circuit boards, Tom and Jennifer Mitchell. 15 years ago, Kate said clearly, these 2 people built a company called Cloudbridge Systems. Thomas Mitchell and Jennifer Mitchell. They were the founders, the ones who laid the very first foundation. The lobby went silent. Jennifer passed away in 2018 in a tragic car accident. Thomas, her husband, was forced out of the company. And for 10 years, he disappeared from the tech world. The next slide appeared. Tom, wearing a maintenance uniform, holding his old silver toolbox. 3 months ago, he walked back into this building, not as a CEO, not as an engineer, but as a repairman. A wave of whispers rippled through the hall. Then it faded as Kate's voice steadied. He worked quietly, fixed printers, fixed air conditioners, checked electrical systems. No one knew who he was. No one heard him complain. He just worked and went home every day at 3:30 to pick up his daughter. Another image filled the screen. Emma Mitchell, 9 years old, beaming as she hugged a thick book. This is Emma, Thomas and Jennifer's daughter. She didn't know her father once founded this company. To her, he's just the man who always comes home on time. And perhaps that's his greatest achievement. Kate's voice trembled. She paused, then spoke quietly. My father, Robert Whitmore, was the one who pushed Thomas out of this company. And today, I want to say what my father never could. I'm sorry. I'm sorry on his behalf. I'm sorry on behalf of this company. The room was utterly still, only the sound of breathing and a few muffled sobs. Kate lifted her chin, steady again. Starting today, we are creating the Jennifer Mitchell Scholarship Fund, a fund named after the woman who inspired this company. It will support the children of every quantum dynamics employee, from engineers to security guards, from executives to janitors. Because everyone, every single one of you, helps build this company. Applause erupted, then grew louder, then thundered across the lobby like a wave. Kate raised her hand for quiet. And one more thing, she said. From today, our main research facility will be named the Mitchell Innovation Lab. The screen lit up, revealing a shining bronze plaque. Mitchell Innovation Lab, in memory of Thomas and Jennifer Mitchell, founders of Cloud Bridge Systems, 2015. They built the foundation. We build the future. Applause roared through the hall. People began standing. First a few, then all at once. Kate turned toward the back doors, speaking softly into the microphone. And now, I would like to invite Thomas Mitchell to the stage. Tom stood by the rear doors, wearing a suit borrowed from Mike. The collar was a bit tight, the sleeves slightly long. He looked both nervous and endearing. Beside him, Emma, in a pale yellow dress, held her father's hand tightly. Daddy, I'm scared, she whispered. Tom knelt down, smiling gently. So am I. But we'll do it together, okay? Emma nodded. They stepped out. Spotlights flooded them. 800 pairs of eyes turned toward the man they once passed in the hall without a glance. Applause filled the air, soft at first, then growing until it thundered across the entire atrium. Tom led Emma to the stage. He looked out over the crowd, faces he recognized from every corridor, people who once chuckled when they saw him pushing a cart of tools. Now they stood, not out of pity, but out of respect. Kate walked forward and extended her hand. Thank you for being here, Thomas. Tom nodded, shaking her hand firmly. Thank you for doing what's right. Kate crouched to Emma's level, her voice soft and warm. You must be Emma, right? Emma nodded shyly. Do you know how incredible your mother was? Emma's small voice trembled. Daddy told me. Kate smiled, eyes glistening. Your mom is part of this company's soul, and from today on, everyone will know that. The screen behind them changed once more. A radiant photo of Jennifer Mitchell, her eyes full of light, her smile alive with purpose. Emma stared up and whispered, She's so beautiful. Kate pulled her into a gentle hug. And you look just like her. After the ceremony, Tom and Emma were invited up to the 12th floor. The door opened, revealing the Mitchell Innovation Lab, a bright, sunlit space filled with screens, prototypes, and design tables. On the main wall hung a large framed photo of Tom and Jen, taken in 2015, in their old garage, smiling like sunlight itself. Beneath it, engraved on bronze, Thomas and Jennifer Mitchell, founders of Cloud Bridge Systems, 2015, builders of dreams, lovers of family. Build things that outlast you. Love people more than projects. Tom stood motionless. He couldn't speak. Light shimmered in his eyes. Emma tugged his sleeve. "Daddy, is this where you're going to work now?" Tom nodded, voice thick. "Yes, sweetheart." "Will you make amazing things like Mommy did?" Tom knelt down and hugged her tightly. "I'll try. But the most amazing thing of all is that I'll still come home on time." Emma giggled, pressing her cheek to his shoulder. "Promise?" Tom nodded, whispering, "I promise." Golden light poured through the glass, wrapping around father and daughter, beneath the words carved on the wall. "Build things that outlast you." And in that moment, Tom knew Jen had never truly left. She was still there, in every breath, every project, and in the heart of the man who never stopped building. 6 years later, Mitchell Innovation Lab, late afternoon. The last rays of sunlight streamed through the wide glass windows. Emma Mitchell, now 15, walked in after school. She wore her high school uniform, her hair tied in a ponytail, a backpack over her shoulder. "Dad!" Tom looked up from his desk. At 47, his hair had turned noticeably gray, but his eyes were still bright and gentle, just like always. "You're home early," he smiled. Emma grinned, sitting down beside him. "School ended early today. I wanted to come here to do my homework." Tom chuckled. "All right, but don't distract me while I'm working, okay?" "Yes, sir." Emma opened her MacBook, the one he'd given her for her birthday last year, and began typing. Tom watched her for a moment, smiling softly, then turned back to his sketches and design boards. 30 minutes later, Kate Whitmore entered. Now 36, she carried herself with calm authority, yet still had that spark of the woman who once rebuilt an empire. "Tom, got a minute? I'd like to review the new prototype." Tom stood up. "Of course. Emma, stay here and finish your homework, okay? I'll be right back." "Okay, Dad." She stayed focused on her screen as Tom and Kate stepped into the conference room. On the table sat a sleek device, its steel surface gleaming. A high-speed internet system designed for remote rural schools. Kate examined it, impressed. "Has it been tested yet?" Tom nodded. "Yes. The first 5 schools ran trials. The results were far beyond expectations. Kids in the mountains can now study online, just like those in the city." Kate smiled warmly. "Jennifer would be proud." Tom looked out the window. "I hope so." Kate hesitated, then asked quietly, "Do you still think about her?" Tom nodded, his voice low but peaceful. "Every day, but I don't run from it anymore. I carry it with me, as part of my life." Kate nodded, silent for a moment. Tom continued, a gentle light in his eyes. "You know, Emma's planning to apply to Stanford next year." Kate's eyes lit up. "Really? What major?" "Computer science, same as Jen and me." Kate leaned against the table, smiling. "She'll be brilliant, Tom." Tom chuckled softly. "I think so too. But there's one thing I keep reminding her. Whatever she does, she shouldn't forget to live. And to cherish family." Kate's voice softened. "You don't have to tell her that. You've already taught her, by the way you live." When Tom returned to the lab, Emma had closed her laptop and was staring at the large framed photo on the wall. The picture of Tom and Jen in the garage, 2015, both smiling amid wires and circuit boards. "Dad?" Tom walked over. "What is it, sweetheart?" "I want to ask about Mom." "Go ahead." "Was she happy when she worked here?" Tom smiled gently, gazing at the photo. "She was. She loved creating things that made people's lives better." Emma was quiet for a while, then said softly, "I want to be like her." Tom rested a hand on her shoulder, his tone warm. You already are. Smart, kind, and always thinking of others. Emma leaned her head on his shoulder. Do you ever regret leaving the company back then? Tom paused, reflecting. When it happened, I thought I'd lost everything. I lost your mom. I lost the company. I lost my dreams. But now, I realize I didn't lose anything. I still have you. I still have her memory. And I got the chance to start over. That's enough. Emma looked up, eyes shining. You're the best dad in the world. Tom smiled through tears. Thank you, Emma. That night, they drove home together. No longer in the small rented apartment, but in a cozy house in Sunnyvale, with a front yard and maple trees lining the path. On the way, Emma asked, Dad, when I go to Stanford next year, will you be okay? Tom smiled in the rearview mirror. I'll miss you so much, but I'll be okay. Emma wrinkled her nose. Promise you won't overwork yourself? Tom chuckled. I promise. When they got home, Tom cooked dinner. Pasta carbonara, Emma's favorite. They ate together, laughing about their day. The sound of cutlery, the soft chatter, the scent of cream and cheese. Pure peace. After dinner, Emma went upstairs to study. Tom stayed in the living room, opened his laptop, and found an old photo. Jen, pregnant, standing in the garage, pointing proudly at their first prototype. He brushed his fingers across the screen. Jen, do you see her now? She's grown up, smart, brave, kind, just like you. I kept my promise. I've been there for her. Every day, every second. He closed the laptop. Outside, the night sky glittered, 1,000 tiny lights, like the dreams they once shared. Tom smiled, whispering, I used to think success meant people knowing my name. But now I know. Success is when my daughter knows I'm always there for her. When something I've built helps someone, somewhere. I don't need a plaque. I don't need credit. I just need to know. What I built mattered. And that was the journey of Thomas Mitchell. From a man who lost everything to one who finally understood the worth of what he still had. He didn't need fame. He didn't need a title. What he left behind was love, memory, and a daughter who knew her father had lived right. If this story touched your heart, if you've ever lost, stood back up, and chosen love over ambition, leave me a comment. What moment made you realize what truly matters in life? I read every comment as if it were a handwritten letter. And if you want to keep hearing stories of faith, family, and people who fell, but never gave up, don't forget. Subscribe so you don't miss the next story. Like if you still believe kindness exists. Share this video with someone who needs the reminder. Fame fades, but love stays forever.